It's an ambush.
Oh my God, it's an ambush!
It's an ambush!
Of course!
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a ambush stream. I'm in that weird sort of paradoxical state of being emotionally lethargic, and yet somehow I'm still awake and energized. Don't know. Just one of those days. Maybe just changing the weather. Maybe something else is going on. Maybe it's that time of the month. I don't know. I mean, if it was that time of the month, I'd be here with Monkey and Satsu. And if you get that joke, you're a veteran. But I got a couple of things I grabbed to talk about, briefly or otherwise, just for the hell of it. But who's joining me on this beautiful Wednesday evening? Kiro Soldier, hello. Resolute Germ, hello. Miranda Stone is here. Well, oh my gosh. You guys know about Miranda Stone. Also, Fostonia is here. How you doing, Fostonia? Hey, Scribe, next time I dono to Agenda Free TV, I'll be sure to shout out the Scribe Legend. Hey, thanks, Fostonia. That's great. That'd be neat. It'd be cool if I was actually watching at the time that happened. That'd be cool. Yeah, I was watching a little bit today when he was doing his little photo op thing with some race car drivers or something, I think, to talk about the tariffs and all that. I got something to say on that in a second. First, Deadman. Holy cats. Thank you so much, Deadman. Appreciate it. Hello, Scribe. By the time you get this, I won't be around. Well, I hope you just mean that in the temporary sense. But, TT, I might come back to catch the tail end. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Deadman. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good evening whenever you do see this. And hope you enjoy the show. Shady Grin. Hello. Kiro Soldier, did I say hello, Kiro? I did already say it. All right. Hello, Kiro Soldier. Again, Unfair Ophelia. Good evening. The Best Remy. Hello. Jeremiah Hembry. Hello. Otho May. Hello. Bridget. Hello. I passed my kendo exam. Oh boy! You got to beat people with sticks for glory. Congratulations, Bridget. I know you've been working at that for a long time. So, congratulations. I still don't have an applause stinger. After all this time, you'd think I'd have an applause stinger in my little bag of tricks, but I don't yet. So, a enthusiastic golf clap for Bridget. Corey Suzuki, hello. Who else is here? Keeverdam, hello. Johnny Blaze, hello. What you doing up so late? Well, I don't know. If I had a good explanation, I'd give it to you. But I don't. I'm just awake. I'm kind of energized. I had kind of a blah day. I took a little bit of a nap earlier because I was just like tired. I think it might be depression. Not really sure. Well, I'm kind of sure, but it's not like I'm off my meds depression. I know what the worst of depression looks like. I was there for several years back in the olden days. I think I'm just having a down. Just a bit of a down. I don't know. I'll get over it. As often things do pass, this too shall. But anyway, so yeah, I'm just awake and I was just needing something to do, needing something to keep myself occupied and distracted, and I knew sleep wasn't going to do it, so I thought I'd pop on here because I have that option. So what are you going to do? Simon Willikins, hello. Yep, and thank you. 3 years now. 3 years. Well, hey, that's... Congratulations, Bridget. It's always good to see your efforts come to fruition like that. So hope you have a good celebration of that and have many more people to hit with sticks in the future. I know. I'm not meaning to trivialize, but it is, hitting people with sticks. So, Zan Wild, good evening. And it's not that late. It's only 8:40 p.m. Well, here's the thing: when you have to get up at 4 a.m. every day for work, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock becomes bedtime. It really doesn't matter if you're an old man or not. That's kind of like, well, I've been up for a while. So this is technically eating into my usual bedtime. So even though it's prime time for everybody else, that's just the way my schedule works these days. So Red Feather 1, good evening. But yeah, I had a couple of things to, I don't know. First off, am I the only one who thinks that Jack Quaid should play Max Payne? I mean, this is apparently a picture from Novocaine, But give me a break. Is that or is that not Max Payne right there? The only thing is that he couldn't pull off the voice without sounding like a complete doofus. But at least visually, I was looking at this, I was like, dude, we could totally get a real Max Payne movie. And actually what they should do, it's too bad that McCaffrey's passed away, because he was the voice of Max Payne. But I mean, if you had to employ some kind of AI model, you've got plenty of voice recordings of McCaffrey that you could fake it and dub over Jack Quaid. But yeah, I think that works. Also, Spoonie the Rebel, good evening. But yeah, if you know what I'm talking about, Max Payne, totally, he'd make a great Max Payne. That's just a great look. Red Feather, we're not sure that is Jack Quaid. That is the son of Dennis Quaid and what's her name that I'm suddenly forgetting. But anyway, he's an actor, or if you don't know who Max Payne is, well, Max Payne's a video game character. Anyway, those of you that know Max Payne, the video game, that picture is practically a spitting image of the first game, and I thought it looked really good. Anyway. And that's the show, everybody. That's the stream I wanted to do. Not really. Rowan Harushan, good evening. Ebony Williams, hello. You dyed your hair. Well, my avatar, my AI-generated avatar dyed my hair. It's true. Man, I wish I had tousled hair that looked that epic. You know? I don't, though. My tousled hair just looks kind of rat's nesty. But, I did have at least one story I want to go over. This is something that I'd usually save for the Sunday stream, but this is just so bonkers that I just thought I'd read through it because the details are still coming out. Weezer bassist's wife shot by LA police and booked for attempted murder. Now, how did this all come about? Well, it's even goofier than even the headline suggests. Jillian Lauren treated for non-life-threatening wound after incident where officers searched for hit-and-run suspects. I don't know all the details, but what little I know is just wild. Weezer bassist Scott Schreiner's wife, okay, I'm going to go through this slow because there's a lot going on here, was shot by police on Monday as officers searched for hit-and-run suspects in her Los Angeles neighborhood. So they weren't looking for her. They were looking for somebody else. Jillian Lauren, 51, was treated for a non-life-threatening gunshot wound, which is lucky as all heck, at a local hospital after the incident, but later booked for attempted murder, according to Los Angeles police. The episode started on Monday afternoon at about 3:25 p.m., when California Highway Patrol requested backup for investigating a 3-car hit-and-run. As traffic backed up on the 134 freeway, at least one suspect fled on foot, witnesses told outlet KTLA. Uniformed officers responded to the request for backup and established a perimeter in the nearby Eagle Rock neighborhood. While there, a woman exited her home holding a handgun, according to police. Officers ordered her to, quote, drop the handgun numerous times, however, she refused, unquote, according to an LAPD press release. Authorities allege the woman, later identified as Lauren, pointed the gun at officers, which is when they fired on her. Lauren was able to run back into her house before returning shortly with a second woman, later identified as her babysitter. Police took both women into custody, transporting Lauren to a local hospital for treatment after determining she was not involved in the hit and run. Lauren and her babysitter were later released from police custody, although she was later absentee booked for attempted murder. Lauren is the author of 2 best-selling memoirs, 2010's Some Girls, My Life in a Harem, and 2015's Everything You Ever Wanted. Weezer is a Los Angeles band beloved for their 1994 record unofficially known as the Blue Album, featuring songs including Say It Ain't So and Buddy Holly. Schreiner joined the band in the early 2000s. Lauren and Schreiner married in 2005, 2 years before the bassist would join Weezer. The couple also have 2 children. The band is scheduled to perform at Coachella this weekend. I'd be surprised if they did. But okay, so there's a hit and run accident. The suspects get out on foot. They chase the suspects into a neighborhood. This lady, for reasons unknown, walks out with a gun, waves it around, points it at cops, gets shot. Last I heard it was in the shoulder. survives that, runs back in the house, brings out her babysitter. They both get arrested. What just happened? I mean, if she thought that if she saw the police or she saw somebody running through her house and she pulled out her gun to defend herself, maybe one of the, hit and run people ran through. I don't know. But then the cops show up and she just points it at them. Like, what the heck? So I don't know. I'm sure that more will come out as time goes on, maybe. Especially if she's been charged with attempted murder for pointing a gun at police officers. Not a wise thing to do in LA or otherwise. But I saw that. And it's just such an odd combination of elements and circumstance. I just couldn't wait till Sunday to talk about it. I'm sure it's a developing story. Maybe it'll be on agenda-free TV. You never know. But there was that. But I wanted to say something briefly, very briefly, on the tariff stuff. And I think I mentioned this yesterday on the failed attempt at a watch party over on the Discord server. I mean, I'm not an economist. I don't know what's going to happen with the economy or the stock market or anything between now and whenever. All I got to say is you want to look at the long-term trends and things and not just what happens on a particular day or two. But everybody and their brother, all shocked or dismayed or something that Trump put a pause on all the tariffs. I think I mentioned yesterday, he did a dry run on all this earlier this year with Mexico and Canada. What did he do then? The exact same thing. He threatened tariffs, and then right up to the 11th hour, he had them on, and then he pulled them back and put a pause on them for a month or 90 days or whatever it was to give them time to negotiate. And it really doesn't matter what they negotiate, right? At the end of the day, it's can he bring these world leaders to the table to concede on anything? Anything is an advantage, both to his ego and his position as, a world leader and or world manipulator. Or, overall benefit for the United States in some way, shape, or form. He gave us all a preview, but over and over again, it's kind of similar to what Satsu used to say on Lords of the Night. History didn't begin until 2016. Well, apparently, history is reset every single day under Trump because nobody remembers what he did a month ago, which was a preview of what he was going to do now. So, like I say, I can't predict what the outcome of any of this will be, but his decision-making process is exactly the same now as it was when he did it the first time. And why were people shocked by this? I don't know. Or calling it, he caved to pressure or anything else. Did he? Or was this just his plan all along? Now, again, I can't attest to the quality of the plan. Time will tell. Because we're not talking about a one-off thing. None of this is happening in a vacuum. You've got all these different countries with all these different circumstances. Who knows what the outcome's going to be? But, as I always say, and I even said it under Biden, I didn't vote for him, but he's my president, and I hope he does a good job. So, knock wood, fingers crossed, it all turns out for the best. But watching all of these, Monday morning quarterbacks, I should say, on Twitter and elsewise today, trying to go oh my gosh, Trump caved, and he ran away, he retreated from his tariffs. Yeah, that's what he did. And this isn't me praising Trump like some kind of genius or something. It's just pattern recognition. But what do I know? Probably not much. Kay Roberts, good evening. Stevie J, hello. It's weird how people think Trump is bad while assuming that foreign leaders are good. There's been a point made a couple of times now on Twitter. It's if America imposing tariffs means the global economy starts falling apart, that means the global economy is completely dependent on American money. And there might be some truth to that. There might be some truth to that. Anthem Ward, but you have to remember, Scribe, Trump is Trump cured cancer. Why would you be so mean to cancer? I know. I think he said that in his little non-State of the Union address, right? He could cure the worst disease ever and it'd still be somehow a bad thing. Shiromata, hello everyone. Welcome to the ambush. Yes, welcome to the ambush. By the way, I'm going to ambush you now with something I haven't done in a little bit now, and that's just J-random video of people trying to, justify their careers or existences or something through DEI. I know. This is a little bit too lengthy for a DEI Death Watch. I'm trying to keep those relatively brief. This might be around the same length of time, who knows. But, yeah, so what is it? Well, this is something that was posted just the other day, so it's nothing, this isn't stale, this isn't from a long time ago. But the subject is, what's up with DEI? Building fair workplaces and hiring practices in 2025. So we're going to have some kind of Zoom call thing. I'm hoping there's not too much fluff. I might have to skip around a little bit. The whole thing lasts an hour. I haven't vetted it ahead of time, so it's supposed to be a panel discussion. I'm hoping for a land acknowledgement. We haven't had one of those in a while. Keldrick, thank you so much. Hi, Keldrick. Pattern recognition is an increasingly rare skill these days, as are basic logic and rational thought. Yeah, I mean, we're not talking about ancient history, right? It's like, what, in this particular instance, what is Trump going to do? It's like, well, he's obviously going to pull these things back. I mean, I couldn't tell the timing of it, right? But I knew at some point, relatively shortly after implementing them, if he implemented them all, he was going to put a pause on them. Because either because that was the plan all along, or if these stories are true, several countries have gone like, okay, you want to negotiate? We can negotiate. And that's all he wanted in the first place. It was all ever about leverage. It was all ever about trying to upset the current order of things, which I thought is what a whole bunch of the left-wing people wanted. Haven't we heard for like the last 8 years that the system needs to be torn down and build something better? Well, I mean, at least ostensibly, this is sort of like that, but now that's a bad thing, I guess. But really, I just care about myself, and I care about all of you. I mean, all I hope is that our overall collective well-off goes up. That's it. All right, let's, at the end of the day, I mean, I want us all to be able to retire easier and have more money to spend and be safer financially and so on and so forth. That's it. You know, I see all these people. It really throws off your proportionality on things. Watching people on Twitter or YouTube or whatever throwing around tens, hundreds, millions of dollars all the time, talking about such big numbers, and just I had a I know it's nothing new, but I had this video show up in my feed the other day. It was a compilation of all these Twitch streamers and YouTubers and guys on doing bets and losing like tens or hundreds or millions of dollars on single bets and things like that on online games and online poker and all that. And I'm just sitting there going like, what? I mean, I understand gambling's an addiction. At the same time, though, I thought, man, what? If someone is this so publicly ill, why are they allowed to manage their own finances in any way, shape, or form? Watching these dude bros on Twitch like lose $50,000 on a single bet of some kind of pachinko game or something, like, good gravy. If I had $50,000 burning a hole in my pocket, it would be straight into investments, because prices are not going to go down over time for essential goods over between now and when I retire. If I retire, who knows? Super Mutant 2099. They want to build a system where they control everything from every part of your life, every piece of info you get. It's true. I mean, ultimately, this isn't going to change anything. It's not going to level the playing field. There's still going to be, the rich are going to be rich and the poor are going to be poor, and the people in control of the levers of information and corporations and industry and everything else are still going to be there, or they'll be easily replaced by somebody else. I just, you know, I just want everybody who can get their small little wedge of the proverbial pie to get as much as they're able to. But anyway, that's all beside the point. Let's talk about DEI hiring in 2025, guys. So purportedly, this video is coming out in the aftermath of all the current backlash against DEI, and these experts, wherever they are, going to talk about this. Now, again, I haven't vetted this ahead of time. I don't know how much fluff there is or how much filler. If we have a land acknowledgement, we'll at least listen to that. But if they don't get to the panel discussion part of it quickly, I might skip ahead. The whole video lasts about an hour. I'm probably not going to go through the whole video, but here we go.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for
You're
today's
welcome.
discussion. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes because it usually takes Zoom a minute or two to let everybody into these webinars.
Okay, well, then I'm going to skip ahead until we get to something that looks like more than one guy on the screen. Okay, here are our panelists. As somebody's revving their engine outside. We have Javier Barrientos, Chief Diversity Officer, .32 Health. Don't know what that is. Next, we have Rocky Howard, founder Diversology.io. Okay, wait a sec. Have I done a video on that? That sounds vaguely familiar. Now that I say it out loud. Have I looked at this? Have I seen this lady before? Maybe. Anyway, founder Diversology.io and Chief People and Equity Officer Textio. Or Textio? Okay. Heather Bussing, employment attorney at Bussing Law. I wonder who owns that one. And then LaShonda Rogers, founder Rogers Global Leadership Consortium. A consortium. You don't hear that word very often, consortium. That'd be a great sort of like amorphous name for a evil entity in some kind of like spy thriller or something. The consortium. I'm sure it's already been done. But let's get to the actual panel. Oh, are we interested in the panelists? Okay, I guess maybe this is the start of it. Okay, let me back up just a smidge. All right, let's see what he has to say.
Experience as an employment lawyer, 20 years teaching law school, and 18 years thinking about technology, people, and law. She also writes a daily column on the latest employment laws covering pay, equity, and transparency, AI and HR tech, and why compliance, diversity, and fairness are good business. So
I love a panel of experts.
Thank you, Heather, for bringing the legal perspective to us.
Yes. Oh, and by the way, I finally did what I mentioned I would do. Just for reference purposes, I probably should get one for Title VII as well, but I have my Title VI overlay now. So when I need to reference what Title VI says when I do my DEI Death Watch shows, yeah, now I have this as a reference point that I can bring up to remind everybody what the rules are.
Javier is a seasoned leader dedicated to helping organizations achieve excellence through innovative next practices. With a background in technology, telecom, finance, healthcare, and health sciences, he's made significant contributions to companies such as T-Mobile and Amazon, and is currently at .32 Health.
Significant contributions, how?
Javier holds an MBA from BU, a graduate certificate in diversity management from Cornell, and
a certificate in diversity management from Cornell. Boy, I wonder if I could just like challenge the course on getting certified as a diversity consultant at this point. I wonder what the test looks like for that.
Law degree from the Universidad de Costa Rica.
Mm-hmm.
LaShonda is the founder of the Rogers Global Leadership Consortium, specializing in workplace equity, organizational development, employee growth strategies, and project management.
So, nonsense.
With 20 years of experience, LaShonda partners
28
with
years of
organizations to foster inclusive environments that enhance employee engagement, retention, and operational excellence.
Great.
And last but not least, Rocky is the founder of Diversology.io.
Diversiology. Suddenly I think of what was that Paula Abdul song? Vibology. Remember Vibology? Everybody remembers Vibology. Yeah, sure.
And Chief People Officer and Equity Officer at Textio. She's an acclaimed diversity strategist and a recognized diversity influencer. She's been featured on platforms like ABC News and Harvard Business Review. She's the voice for engaged and inclusive work cultures and believes in changing the world one story, one conversation, and one action. Thank you all so much for...
That pause was on the original video, not me. I swear, the more I think about it, I have a feeling I may have done a stream before with Rocky Howard. That name and that company name just sounds too familiar to me. But it could be my memory's failing me, but it sounds very familiar.
For joining us. One last bit of housekeeping here. We're going to record this. We'll send the recording as well as the takeaways doc. We are also, you're certified for a SHRM credit and HRCI credit. So look in your inbox if you're trying to accumulate those.
I get credit for this? Oh boy.
And with that, we'll launch a poll to see what people care about, what we should be covering in this conversation.
Oh my gosh.
And while we're launching that poll, I'd love to just dive right into it. And Heather, I don't know if I can put you on the spot here to kick things off, but can you give us the state of the world, April 2nd, 2025? What is sort of going on with all the things that we're reading in the news from especially a legal perspective?
Yes, Heather, tell us about the affirmative action decision by the Supreme Court back in 2023. Tell us about the executive orders. Tell us about existing civil rights laws. I can't wait to hear a legal perspective on this. Also, over in the chat, I see more people popping in. Alan Thyler, good evening. Breeze Feats. On any given day, I can't imagine a single reason to speak to any of these hacks about anything. The reason to listen to them is because they're in the thick of it. And they're on the side that is promoting and doubling down on this stuff, either for their own career survival or because they're dyed-in-the-wool ideologues, either way. But I just figured this is the thinking and these are the rationalizations that are trying to keep DEI going. And for, if only, educational purposes. It's interesting to listen to how they try to square the circle of current events and legal realities, especially this our lawyer that's going to talk in a second, with what's going on in the world. Nathan Allen Pinard, Scribelight, this presenter is just reading and not presenting. Well, yeah, no, he's reading everybody's introductions, but now he's going to put the lawyer on the spot. What's going on in the world right now, lawyer lady?
Yeah, from a legal perspective, not a lot has changed.
Well, I mean, if you mean in the sense that the same civil rights laws that should have constrained all of this stuff from the get-go are exactly the same as they were since 1964, then sure. But there is that little affirmative action thing. That was not an insignificant event.
But there has been lots of sound and fury. The all state and federal anti-discrimination laws are still in effect.
Well, yes, the laws are. I mean, Trump overturned that one Lyndon Baines Johnson executive order that contained affirmative action that everybody got freaked out over, which effectively meant nothing.
And while the president has issued executive orders sort of trying to normalize discrimination.
No. Okay, well, I already know you're on the other side of sanity here. Normalize discrimination. So the laws haven't changed, but Trump is trying to normalize discrimination. How do you figure that?
Or trying to characterize DE&I as discrimination against white men.
No, I don't know if you actually read the executive order. White men isn't included therein. It's just discriminatory. Now, it is discriminatory against white men as a matter of course. White men are the enemy. But that's beside the point. Discrimination is discrimination. Okay, so you're... All right. Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, you're on this panel.
It's not happening. And...
Wait. It's not happening? What's not happening? Discrimination against white men isn't happening? Have you ever listened to any of your contemporaries when it comes to analyzing what's wrong with a company simply by looking at it? I have. It is really all about white men are a problem. If there are too many white men in your leadership team, that needs addressing.
We're trying to characterize DE&I as discrimination against white men. It's not happening. And so what we're seeing is an attempt to shift perspective and to make people afraid. But what the reality is that the law is the same. The requirement for employers to provide a discrimination and harassment-free workplace continues.
Yes, and violations of those laws have gone unaddressed. That's why DEI has flourished. Here's the thing. You can have a law that doesn't change, sure. But if that law is not effectively enforced over time, that doesn't mean what's going on is legal. Now, you might be able to extend some benefit of the doubt to companies that have been operating under the belief that, well, we haven't faced any consequences for this, so there must not be any consequences to be had. Maybe. And depending on the circumstances, you might be able to get a pass in a good faith basis if the government itself imposed requirements on you as a federal contractor or something that effectively violated existing law because they weren't going to enforce it in the first place. But these two things can be true at the same time. The law cannot have changed, and you could still be doing something illegal. Or do you not know that?
And no matter what happens at the federal level, we will continue to have anti-discrimination law at the state level. And so we need to keep doing what we have been doing,
because insanity means what again?
which is treating people fairly and hiring qualified people no matter what they look like or who they are.
You obviously have absolutely no idea how DEI has worked and is meant to work, do you? I'm glad you got a big grin on your face. Maybe you should listen to DEI advocates and officials. That's why I'm curious here. Now, maybe she's just blissfully ignorant. Maybe she's just got rose-colored glasses on. So I'm curious to hear when we get to our DEI professional consultants, what kind of rhetorical chicanery they do to not offend this lady's statements, if they can.
Is there any teeth behind these threats to effectively say, hey, DEI policies are actually discriminatory against white men?
Yes. Yes, there is. Well, let's put it this way. There only is if the Trump administration and the DOJ decide to take decisive and meaningful action against someone, as an example. Somebody needs to be made of an example of to make the point. And just like with the revealing the Epstein files and everything else, I'm hearing a lot of words. The only actions I'm seeing so far, which are positive, is the removal or threats to remove federal funding from certain colleges and universities on the basis of their DEI policies. And that's good. But I'm waiting for a private sector example. Several companies and organizations are being investigated right now for potential violations. Comcast, Paramount, Disney. I'm hoping that continues. And I'm hoping it bears fruit. Tangible, meaningful fruit. Not a slap on the wrist fine that amounts to a daily rounding error of a company's profits, but something significant that reminds everybody where the line is.
Especially, and we're going to have some sort of legal ramification here. I feel like you're seeing headlines around this. You're certainly seeing internal employment law teams kind of changing language on DEI policies, changing language on websites to decrease risk there.
Why is there any risk at all? If it's all completely legal, why is there any risk to mitigate? And by the way, they keep mentioning, discriminating against white men. Well, if they were discriminating in favor of some other demographic on the basis of their race or gender, that would be just as wrong. All right? It doesn't matter which direction the discrimination goes. If you're doing it on the basis of things that are outlined as illegal elements, it's illegal.
So there's the threat. Do we know if there's teeth, and is there a case kind of going through the courts that will give us some case law that maybe, there's a timeline for knowing if there's teeth there?
A case going through the courts. Read the Civil Rights Act. Title VI, Title VII, and put those up against the quota actions and targets and demographic movements when it comes to hiring and promotion in all of these major companies. And you tell me, legal expert.
Well, so discriminating against white Christian men because they are white or Christian or men is already illegal.
Yes.
It just doesn't happen very much.
Jesus. Lady, where have you been? Okay, how much is very much? I don't know. I'm not going to deny my sort of bias here in the sense that I have been listening to DEI consultants and executives over and over and over and over again for the better part of the last decade. And time and time and time again, as I said before, one of the leading examples of some DEI consultant knowing that there's a problem at a company, one of the leading problems you always heard from social justice warriors when they're talking about diversity and trying to do the racial reckoning and everything, is looking at the makeup of the company and seeing too many people who are the same. Too many people who looked alike and thought alike and have the same experiences, and they'd use all this flowery language, not very flowery, to try to avoid what they were really saying, and oftentimes they'd say it anyway. You know, too many white men. And what are diversity initiatives meant to do? They're meant to balance the scales on a demographic basis, to push people up on the basis of their race and set aside other people on the basis of their race. Again, either this lady is just completely, blissfully ignorant of reality, or she's being deceptive. I don't know which it is, but she may be fooling herself.
And in a discrimination case, you have to be able to prove that you were harmed because you were discriminated against.
Uh-huh.
And that doesn't happen very much either.
Really? Are you sure about that?
Because white Christian men tend to have more privilege and power and access to resources.
Oh, okay. So white Christian men can't be discriminated against because, obviously, because of what they are, they have things that other people who aren't white Christian men obviously don't have. So you can't really discriminate against a white man. And the thing that's more interesting to me is the fact that we just had a case go through the Supreme Court. I mean, the decision has not come through yet, but we just heard oral arguments, and I streamed this a while back, where this very question came up because there was a injustice going on when it came to filing civil rights potential violation claims, in that there was a presumed greater burden on a white plaintiff versus a non-white plaintiff because of an assumption that the people in the majority demographic can't be as discriminated against as someone in a minority demographic. And when this was brought up in oral arguments, everybody in the room, all the justices on the bench, and even the lawyers for both sides, said that that didn't make any sense. And so the idea that there had to be a greater burden put onto someone who's a white plaintiff versus a non-white plaintiff has pretty much gone out the window. The official ruling hasn't come down yet, probably won't for another couple of months or 3, but it's coming. The whole idea of reverse discrimination is harder to prove or something. There's no reverse discrimination. It's just discrimination. But yeah, obviously, no, a white person couldn't possibly be the victim of a civil rights violation against them getting a job or a promotion because, well, white people are just better off than everybody else by default. As we all know, who are totally rich right now and living in mansions and don't have to work for a living and get up at 4 a.m. and anyway.
So, I mean, it's just our world has not changed.
Our world has not changed.
But it is changing.
So it has changed.
And I believe that there is a perception of some people who feel threatened by that.
Some people? What do you mean, some people?
But we're also in a world where there's a labor shortage and will be for the foreseeable future.
What?
And where we have a majority of women and people of color in college and graduate school, and they are becoming the most qualified people.
They are becoming the most qualified people. What, just on the basis of their gender and their race? Why? The most qualified people. Okay, so I can. So what you're saying is that I can just look at somebody and based on their race and or their gender, I can know that they are more qualified than a white man. Is that it?
Not to rabble rouse, because I don't think many times this is the most constructive way to think about this, but I have been following some of the things that's happening to some of the larger law firms in the country that have DI policies are now being penalized by having security clearances removed, etc.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I one of my more recent, well, I mean, recent in the general sense, videos that I was really proud of is the O'Melveny method, the ID law video, where we go through O'Melveny and Myers law firm and their internship program and mentoring program and everything, and just how absolutely blatantly discriminatory it is. But they're all smiles, and they really play up their civil rights or their civil rights division. It's
and the ironic thing is, if you look at Wilmer Hale's partner page, there's a lot of consistency in what people look like, right?
Oh, wait a second. A lot of consistency in what people look like. What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
It's like,
Right.
we're going after this company for discriminatory DEI policies, and every single partner there's a white man. So anyway.
Oh, every single partner there's a white man. We're going after them for DEI policies. Do you understand what truth you just laid out in contradiction to your... God, these people drive me absolutely up the wall with this stuff. Oh, well, there couldn't be any diversity at that law firm. Everybody that runs the place is a white man. Oh, but by the way, DEI doesn't discriminate against white people. So if that law firm had a active DEI program going on, there wouldn't be so many white men running the thing, you say. Huh. Well, golly, that almost sounds like DEI is meant to actively discriminate against white men in power or something. Did I miss something here? No, they did. Good. Dealing with some real brainiacs over here.
Anyways, interesting. I want to open up.
And I love white men. I'm married to one.
Some of my best friends are white men.
But
I want to open up to the rest of the panel and get your perspectives on kind of...
You're not married to, I don't know, whatever your husband's name is, Sam. No, you're married to a white man. Could you just continue to dehumanize people? It's fine.
April 2nd, 2025, what are you doing or advising companies to do to shift, or is it business as usual?
Well, there's nothing to shift. There's no legal liability, right? There's no danger. DEI isn't illegal, as we know. So what is there to mitigate? Hello?
Well, go ahead, Rocky.
No, Javier, please go ahead.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Well, thank you. So, what Heather said is exactly right. So
It is.
What companies are trying to navigate is a very interesting landscape. On the one hand, you have executive orders and a federal administration that government policy has changed. On the other hand, you have federal laws and state laws that are still in the books, that are still the law of the land.
Still the law of the land. How well have those laws been enforced over the course of the last decade? Yeah, if Title VII and the EEOC in enforcing it had been doing their jobs these last 10 years, if they'd been empowered to do their jobs, DEI would have failed at the front line. Because as soon as anybody started talking about percentile goals for hiring on the basis of race and gender, they would have been out the door. But nobody came along. Nobody came calling. And I've talked about this many times before. If you start with my earliest videos on DEI, you heard all of this very sort of couched language talking about what it meant and what the purpose was and what the outcomes they were looking for. They always talked about experience and background, and they kind of wobbled around getting too specific, maybe mention more women and minorities. But eventually, like I say, Puxatawny Phil kept looking around for his shadow and it never showed up, and so he just came out of his hole entirely, and it's been completely without any kind of real veil ever since because it wasn't enforced.
And companies have to abide by those, including, Title VII, in Massachusetts, what we call Chapter 151B.
Well, if they are, then why do so many companies have promoted racialized and gender quotas in hiring over the years without any resistance whatsoever? They put it into their ads, they put it into their promotional materials, they put it into their interviews they have with, financial magazines. Panel discussion after panel discussion, association meeting after association meeting of American-based companies over and over again touting their percentile goals for hiring in the leadership teams, the executive C-suite, and so on. None of that violates state or federal law. Are you sure about that?
And then, there's the other part that they need to navigate, which is the consumer response, right? Like we see companies like Target and others suffered tremendously for taking anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion policies.
Suffer for how much have they suffered? I mean, I've heard about all of these, boycotts and stuff against Target and Amazon, and now Walmart is going on right now. How much have they suffered? Have they quantified that yet?
So, all these things are real. And what Heather said is also very real too. The labor market, the consumer market continues to grow more diverse, and with more people of more backgrounds, joining the workforce and acting as consumers.
So why do you need DEI? I mean, if it's just going to be the law of averages, then why do you need DEI? Just hire the most competent and well-trained people. And it doesn't matter what they look like, because if the demographics are changing so drastically as you say, and for the sake of argument, I'll stipulate, fine, the population demographics of the United States are shifting ever more into a more, diverse, not so lopsided, whatever. Well, then just let nature take its course. Why do you need to engineer outcomes? You keep talking about equity. What is the need for DEI if the talent pool is becoming more diverse as a matter of course? So
a company needs to, diversity, equity, and inclusion considerations are going to be here with us, whether we like it or not, because they're part of a business reality that any business needs to consider.
In what way?
And so for most companies, including the one that I represent, 95% of the things that we were doing, we will continue to do because they are perfectly legal.
Oh, so 5% of what you were doing were legally questionable. Do tell.
And defensible.
Okay, and the remaining 5% are indefensible?
And yes, there are some things that need to be tweaked around, to show a sign of good faith.
Like? Like what?
To the federal administration and the policy changes.
Such as?
But most companies that I've talked to in the circles that I'm in are continuing to stay the course. They're thinking about this in the long term, not just for the next 4 years or.
Right. They're hoping they can stay out of sight for a little while until Trump goes away and a more amenable administration comes into power, right? Yeah. So that's code for everybody's changing their deck chairs on the Titanic briefly.
Whatever many years we are, but really thinking about what is this country, what is this world going to look like, 5, 10, 20 years down the road.
Who cares? Federal law is federal law. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 applies to everybody, and it penalizes discrimination in employment and entities that accept federal money. And it doesn't matter which direction the discrimination goes, whether it's beneficial or detrimental to one demographic or another, it's illegal. So, if the population demographics are changing just a natural evolution of things, what is the need for DEI?
And how do we adjust to meet the demographic change?
What do you need to adjust to? Okay, what does the demographic change mean to you? Aside from a marketing perspective, do you think that you need to populate your workforce with people that look a particular way to satisfy a marketing strategy? Tell me how that works. And if you tell me how that works, tell me again how that doesn't at least tempt fate with established federal civil rights laws.
So that our business can become sustainable and deliver better outcomes in our case in the healthcare space. So
how?
What do you have to say?
Yeah, I think you set the right tone and the right foundation for where we are. And so when I think about when I'm interacting with customers or clients and we're talking about what should we do, interesting, just like you said, in the work that I do with Textio, we recently just hosted a set of conversations with our clients, and we did a poll and we asked people,
and I apologize for having to pause, but if I let this go too long, I risk, all that content matching stuff. So let me back up just a little bit. She did a poll. And a poll on what? What did the poll tell you?
We are. And so when I think about when I'm interacting with customers or clients and we're talking about what should we do, interesting, just like you said, in the work that I do with Textio, we recently just hosted a set of conversations with our clients. And
were they courageous conversations? Was Glenn Singleton there?
We did a poll and we asked people, are you investing more in your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives? Are you holding the course? Are you decreasing, or are you just a little scared? Or do you not know what you're going to do? And
I can't wait to hear what the outcome of this poll was.
I was really excited to see that more than 85% were either holding the course with their initiatives or actually investing more.
Oh, good. But it's only good if something comes along to rubberneck them into changing their ways. And it's all on the DOJ, the EEOC, the DOJ, some of the stuff we're seeing from the FCC. It probably is just lip service, threatening to take away ABC's broadcasting license if they don't comply and or found in violation of hiring laws and things like that. I mean, part of me hopes it isn't just lip service. It's nice to hear the FCC chairman talking about such things. But so far, it's a lot of talk. Waiting for that follow through.
So the first thing I'm telling my clients is don't panic. It's really easy because a lot of the stories that we are seeing, to me, are getting amplified because they suit a narrative that everyone wants us to believe that diversity is dying and it's going and it's illegal.
Okay. Again, I don't mean to belabor the point, but I'll do so for the sake of just saying something. What was the argument in defense of affirmative action that the lawyers for Harvard brought before the Supreme Court? What was their justifying argument? Diversity. That the inherent benefits of a diversity ideology were what justified the existence of affirmative action in admissions practices in colleges. Okay. And affirmative action admissions practices in colleges were race-based. And that stepped right on Title VI. They didn't bring any other kind of argument to justify affirmative action. They brought forth the diversity argument. I listened to the oral arguments. It was, I swear, if you ever go back and listen to the oral arguments from that case, it was chapter and verse, the exact same language, phrases, buzzwords, everything that I've been listening to diversity and inclusion executives and advocates say for the previous 6 years or whatever at that point. And I knew then, and it's true now, not only was affirmative action defeated in that case, but diversity as a defense against violations of Title VI, and by translation, Title VII, went out the window. Diversity is not a defense against violating civil rights law. So, in fact, diversity as a dodge, as a justification for anything that violates someone's civil rights on the basis of their race or their gender, their religion, their ethnicity, and so on, it's already been decided. It's in the case law. And all it's going to take is one more precedent case going after Title VII in a DEI context, using the court's decision in the affirmative action case to completely undercut DEI forever. But, the writing is on the wall. Anybody who is paying attention to this already knows it. It's just going to take one really good case to set a precedent and make it clear to everybody. So anyway.
I'm so glad Heather led with, please understand, executive orders are not law.
Well, tell that to Barack Obama and DACA.
So the first thing I would advise companies do is do not panic.
Unless you're a company that's accepting federal funding, and then you're in deep doo-doo.
Right? Don't make snap decisions because this is a longer term play. The other thing that I would advise companies to do is something that I've been advising companies to do for years that they haven't necessarily done the best job of.
Oh, well, what have all the slackers not been doing that you've been telling them to do? Also, read by nature. I keep coming back to this point. If you believe in wokeness, why on earth do you pay people to come in and tell you how to be woke? That's a money sink if you already believe in the woo-woo nonsense. Well, here's part of the reason why. Whether a company believes in DEI or not, the people that do believe it are oftentimes the people who hold the purse strings. BlackRock, Vanguard, Goldman Sachs, on and on. These guys set the standard of, essentially, if you as a company do not have an active DEI program, or you don't have evidence that you've diversified your board or whatever else, we won't work with you, we won't invest in you. So it's kind of this combination of both ideological belief on one hand, and also a financial, sort of, what do you want to call it? I'm trying to find a turn of phrase that doesn't get me in trouble on YouTube. A Damocles sword, let's say. If you don't have a DEI program, that sword will fall and your funding will be cut off. So for some companies, it is sort of this grudging, necessary box they have to check just to say that they're part of the team and make the people up above happy. In some cases, the people in charge are true blue believers. It's hard to tell the difference between the two, but it really probably comes down to how much is a company investing in DEI? Are they just doing the bare minimum to say that they have a DEI program? Or are they all in and making big promises? So it really, it's kind of like this, virus kind of thing that moves around and people are forcing it on you and you don't have a choice. If you don't play ball, you don't get money. That's kind of the way it is. And of course, in the reverse now with Trump, saying, hey, follow federal law or we're going to cut off your funds, which is what he's been doing with the colleges and stuff. Who holds the bigger purse strings?
And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to turn it over to LaShondra because I could talk about this for hours.
Good.
Is, Javier, you talked about the business implications. Mm-hmm. We have to understand that DEI and those initiatives are part of our business imperatives and our human imperatives. So you need to have a strategy for your organization, not one that suits, like if you're company A, you don't need to do what, company B is doing, but what is your strategy on how you integrate your DEI initiatives into your business and through your talent management lifecycle?
What is the business case for DEI? What is the ROI on DEI? How do you show that DEI actually improves your bottom line, your innovation, your efficiency, and so on? You have to be able to draw that line clearly and make the case. If you're investing X millions of dollars into your DEI program, how are you making that back? How are you recouping that investment? And if you could, if it was just a natural golden goose situation, why have so many companies been divesting themselves from their DEI programs long before Trump came back into the White House? These guys keep talking about like Trump showed up and suddenly everything went to pot. No, this was all starting back in 2022. Because, and this is just my theory, a whole bunch of corporate lawyers were listening very intently to those lawyers for the colleges in the affirmative action case, and when they made their argument using diversity as their justification, anybody that knew the makeup of the court and the likelihood of the outcome of that case saw the writing on the wall. This is going to fail. Diversity is going to be on the chopping block. That's the only thing we have going for us to justify these programs, so we better start rolling back how much money we promised and how much we're spending on these things. Because it is a waste. It's getting us nowhere, it's proven nothing, and it may, in fact, and I hope so, cause us to be legally liable in the future. But anyway.
So that it sticks, and the principles, no matter what we wind up calling it, are still important based on, like what Javier just said.
No matter what we end up calling it, so just change the stripes on the leopard, is that it? Spots on the leopard. Leopards don't. Well, I mean, if leopards had stripes instead of spots, they'd still be a leopard, right? Now, I tried to save I can't save it.
The changing demographics are not going to change. What the workforce wants isn't going to change. To Heather's point, the need and the changing availability of talent isn't going to change. And we know this is important. So, LaShondra, what do you think?
Yes, LaShondra, what do you think?
Thank you so much, Rocky. And it's LaShonda.
I'm so sorry.
Her name's right on there. How could you get it wrong?
It's okay. People always want to throw an R or a W in there, and it is okay. It's a lot of vowels in my name.
There are 3 vowels in your name. There's 3 vowels in your name. Okay.
And so one of the things that we are working with a lot of our enterprise customers is to understand, just like Heather and Rocky have stated, this is not law. Like, you have to remember that your customers are watching you. And so we look at Costco made a firm stand and they were going to further their DEI efforts and not follow what Microsoft and what other organizations were doing.
Well, yeah, let's see how that pays off for Costco over the long term.
Like Meta, who decided to pull their programs. Even Apple is standing firm on the value of diversity.
Okay, so wait. You have gigantic corporations that are pulling back, and you have some gigantic corporations that aren't pulling back. And so the ones that aren't pulling back are correct in doing so. Why?
So what we are really is pulling the data and saying, hey, look, from the last 5 years, since you have increased your diversity efforts, your company has grown in exponential leaps.
So you're saying that implementing a DEI program has improved company fortunes? It's not a correlation without causation thing here. You know for a fact that DEI did this to established giant companies like Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, etc. Because they were doing so badly, each one of those companies 10 years ago, before the DEI craze really took off. Is that it?
profitability has increased, and then how you're able to engage with your customer has quadrupled. And so bear in mind, if you begin to pull back on reaching to inclusive and belonging communities, you're going to be impacted financially. And so we
Okay, so I should expect over the next 5 years that Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta, all of their fortunes will take a comparable decline. Is that what you're saying? Because that sounds like what you're saying. I mean, we won't know, I guess, until 2030, but I'll keep that in mind over time.
Companies want to make a profit. Let's be honest. They're in business to make a profit.
So can you give us some numbers on how profitable Costco has been ever since it imposed DEI, and specifically what DEI has done point for point to its bottom line?
So we really make sure they understand that there is value in your teams. And so even though we have executive orders, you still want to make sure that you are still abiding by those. So what does that look like?
Well, wait. Well, they're executive orders, but they're not really laws. But you still have to abide by them. So what does that really mean? That
may look like maybe not necessarily saying diversity, equity, inclusion, but a lot of companies are saying business inclusivity.
Business inclusivity. Okay. Now, admittedly, I am a lot of things. I am not a walking dictionary. I am not Encyclopedia Brown over here. Inclusivity. I mean, I know of inclusivity. I know that word. But inclusivity, that's a lot of vowels. So let me make sure. Is that inclusivity? Now there's inclusivity. Inclusivity. No. I'm sorry. There are too many vowels. I know it's a common problem.
Because they realize if they switch those words around, it's the same initiatives. It just puts them under that radar that Heather and Rocky was talking about, so they're not bringing so much attention to themselves.
Okay, so just try to find the weakest of legal workarounds to an executive order, is what you're saying. Deceive rather than change. Okay.
There's a much bigger focus on workplace culture. So just like Rocky has stated, we're also working with companies to understand who they are at their core.
Do you care who they are more than what their demographic makeup is?
What do you want the public to know about you? Because that impacts your recruiting efforts and how you're able to not just bring customers in, but also retain your talent. And so one thing we're telling them is to be open to pivoting and making necessary changes, but don't move from your core morals. And if it is equity, belonging, then foster that and nurture that while staying in compliance with the executive orders and all the other initiatives.
So change nothing except the verbiage to avoid scrutiny from federal authorities. I mean, it's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for you. And again, I only say that with the not yet confirmed hope that something will actually happen of substance. No, I'm not going to hit the button. I didn't say the right word. When it comes to enforcement.
Javier, it's something you just said, LaShonda, is super interesting to me. And Javier, you sort of hinted at this as well, which is, hey, 95% is the same, which implies there's 5% that changes.
Yeah. Okay. Good job, Phil. I'm glad you caught that because I was very, very curious about that. I'm glad you're going to hold Javier's feet to the fire on this, or at least implicitly so. Will Javier actually answer such a question about what is that 5%?
And LaShonda, it sounds like you're sort of like stay the course, but maybe be careful, like being compliant with different aspects of this. Do you guys mind talking about perhaps what are some of the things that you should be changing to be more in compliant, or what is that 5% that maybe it's not worth the risk? Yes.
Thank you, Phil. Okay. Kudos to Phil. he didn't let that one slide by. I obviously was railing about that a bit. Okay, let's see. Now, you want to take bets on whether or not Javier is going to be, I don't know, detailed in his answer to that question? Do you think he'll concede or admit to something that might be legally questionable? Also, hello, Eagle. Good evening. Meh. Good evening. The Assassin of the Gray. Good evening. Anybody else I missed on the meantime? I don't know. Let's take a look. Anybody else? Is everybody in? A Scanner Daffley. Good evening. And if I didn't already say hello, please make yourself known and I will say hello. All right, Javier, what's that magical 5% that you weren't sure about?
Yeah, I think, as Lashonda said, right, you don't want, you want to create diversity, equity, and inclusion as a positive force. You don't want to make it into a target sign that you put on the company's back so that they can be picked on.
Well, okay, well then tell me, Javier, how dedicated are you to the idea? How much do you believe you are in the right if you're willing to bend the knee to being told that what you believe in is wrong? Okay, so again, your advice is change some wording on your webpage. Is that it?
And so sometimes, the things that I've seen to adjust so that we can do our work without being distracted by, any type of federal intervention.
So in order that we can do our work without being distracted by any federal intervention, we're going to we're going to conceal our activities from public scrutiny. I think that's how a lot of drug labs operate. Yeah, I mean, not to be an extreme in an analogy here, and I'm not suggesting that this guy's operating a drug lab. I'm just saying that when it comes down to strategies to avoid potential legal consequences, if your first thought is, let's just conceal them behind a Potemkin village of normalcy, that's not really a good sign. That's not really... Dom O'Leary. Hi, I fucking said, hey. Okay. Adam Nixon. Good evening. Tarkata. Hello. Anybody else? Everybody in? Okay. All right. So yes, you were saying?
It's looking at, starting by doing an audit of your practices and making sure that your practices are truly inclusive of everyone. Just like Heather said at the opening.
No. It's not about being dictionary definition inclusive. It's about whether or not any of your practices are actively discriminating against people or for people on the basis of their race, their gender, their ethnicity, their religion, and so on. Things that are violations of established federal law, and or if you are making use of quotas. So Javier, so far, you're agreeing that just putting up some camouflage nets over your operation is the first thing you should do. Anything else?
Anti-discrimination laws apply absolutely to everyone.
Well, yes, every employer, everyone accepting federal money,
They covered, white men and,
yes.
Black disabled people, all the
white men and Black disabled people. I mean, it's true. They do cover all those, yes.
spectrum that you can think of, demographics are covered pretty much by those laws.
What 5% of your business had to be changed to avoid scrutiny, Javier?
And you want to make sure that your company's policies and practices respect the laws that are in place, and that if there's opportunities for improvement. Sometimes if a company has employee resource groups.
Employee resource groups. Man, I was looking around for something new on ERGs the other day for something like this or for a DEI Death Watch episode. I didn't see anything too juicy. I'll keep my eyes open though.
And if those groups are not open to everyone, you're gonna be putting a target on your back, right? So you want to open those employee resource groups so that everyone, regardless of background, will have access to them.
Well, then why not just get rid of any employee resource group that focuses specifically on a racial, gender, orientation demographic, ethnic demographic? if you had employee resource group for single parents or veterans or, disabled employees or something, fine. People who are living through either a circumstance or an experience of life that could apply to anybody. If you get rid of all the ERGs that are sped up on like someone's race, someone's religion, someone's ethnicity, I personally would have little complaint against that. But unfortunately, just saying like, oh well, here's our Black Googlers network over at Google. But, anybody can join. Then why call it the Black Googlers Network? Why imply an exclusivity and a discrimination? That's just one example.
Sometimes, even what LaShonda suggested, renaming the function so that the idea here is to shed light, not heat into the situation, right? So if you're going to bring more people together to the table by calling your function inclusion, or by calling it, in our case, excellence and equal opportunity.
Excellence and equal okay, so that's your dodge for DEI. Excellence and equal opportunity. Okay, so when I go to Point 32 Health and I see anything branded with excellence and opportunity, I'll know that that's your DEI program. Okay, well, thanks for giving it away, I suppose.
Then do that, because the thing that also hasn't changed is that diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility are all about making more room at the table, not taking chairs away, but actually making the table bigger.
Yeah, you mean like lowering standards as to who should be listened to and just doing away with merit. Now, here's this table. This is for the most elite, well-trained, most meritorious individuals in our company. Well, that's too exclusionary. We need to be more inclusive. So let's completely dilute the conversation with a whole bunch of people that probably neither have the experience or the know-how to actually contribute to this conversation, because we don't want to feel like we've got like some kind of exclusive club or something going on here. I'm sure that'll really help out with the company in the long term.
To bring more people to that table. So if you have something that is getting on the way of bringing more people and optimizing the value that you have in your organization and your...
If you have something that's preventing people, you mean like merit? Like achievement? Things like that, that's preventing people from getting to the table? Those kind of things? Those kind of barriers?
Consumer space and your supplier space, to make that room. This is a great opportunity to do a quick checkup and audit, engage your legal department to do those reviews.
Why? You've changed the name. What else do you need to do? Javier, what 5% of your DEI initiatives were potentially indefensible by your own words? What 5% of your DEI initiatives were potentially legally questionable? Also, all we had so far is that now you have excellence in equal opportunity. You changed DEI to excellence in equal opportunity. But what about these programs? Is that it? Is that all you had to change?
Make sure that your statements that you have on your websites are, will pass the test of inclusivity, as LaShonda said. Make sure that your internal language is the same.
Pass the test of inclusivity. What does that mean? So
those are all kinds of things that companies can do. Take advantage of this to do a quick checkup. In our case, we've done that, and as I said, 99% is.
Well, no. What? 99? You said 95 earlier. Oh, now you're not. Well, you went up 4% of coverage in the last 5 minutes. Wow, that's crazy. Did you rescind a tariff or something?
It's good. So we'll make a few tweaks here and there. But
like what? I love it. I didn't expect a clear answer, but at the same time, it's still entertaining to see him trying to dance around it.
The rest is, staying the course.
Staying the course.
And I want to jump in real quickly, so I want to make sure that we're staying on task.
Uh-huh.
But real quickly, I want to talk about if you look at Target and Meta, when Target came out that they were discontinuing their DI initiatives, there was a big uproar.
A big uproar. Right. And I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for that story to drop where Target's fortunes plummeted as a result of this uproar. I keep hearing about the backlash. I keep hearing about people complaining. I haven't seen that or heard that being translated over into actual losses yet. But, I mean, who knows? There's still time left in the boycott, I suppose.
I went in Target.
Yeah.
When everyone's saying Target no longer supports DI, there were tons of African-American books and clothing, and there are celebrations all around the store for Black History Month.
Oh my God. It's almost like DEI doesn't have anything necessarily to do with product. I can't tell if this is just intentionally oblivious or being intentionally disingenuous. Okay. There's a lot of things in the and I'll even use the word, the aspirational goals of DEI that don't trip the wire of legality. Right? I mean, if you want to have your entire store laid out with propaganda and books on specific sociological subjects or pop culture, or if you want to have ethnic books over here and pride stuff over whatever you want to do as far as product, that's not necessarily, depending on how you're doing it, tempting fate with legality. DEI primarily has to do with the hiring process, the promotional process, the supplier process. Are you discriminating against or for people on the basis of elements that are already cited as illegal to do so under federal law in employment and programs and activities and opportunities? If you are, that is where the proverbial rubber meets the road on this stuff, not the products you choose to put in your store. You could have a store that sells nothing but books by African American authors and art from Africa and on and on and on, and that store doesn't have to have a DEI program. Do you understand? Maybe you don't understand that. Apparently not. Oh, well, obviously if Target got rid of DEI, that means only white people can shop there now.
And so I learned that it was a false narrative that I was being sold on television and in the media, because it wasn't that they were necessarily getting rid of their DEI. Now, granted, yes, they did eliminate some of their founder programs. As a tech founder, I was impacted. But
Wait. What am I listening? Okay, so you walked into Target and you saw things that you like to see as a customer, and that proved to you that they really hadn't gotten rid of DEI. It was all just noise, even though they did end these other programs, which affected me personally. What am I even... Like I say, I don't need to listen to Tucker Carlson or Bill O'Reilly or any of these other I forget how long ago it was. Somebody was accusing me of, I get all my information on DEI from people like Tucker Carlson. And I was like, I can't recall. The last time I paid attention to Tucker Carlson was when he interviewed Putin. And that was about a 15, 20-minute thing or whatever the hell it was. I don't need to listen to other people tell me what DEI is and isn't. I just need to listen to the people that actually are invested in this stuff as professionals to tell me what it is and what they think about things. My opinion on this stuff is not defined by some abstract or through some filter. I go to the horse's mouth, and when I hear it directly from the people who make businesses out of it and they say such ridiculous things like this, it boggles. It absolutely boggles the mind. This is how someone operates in this world of DEI. It's amazing. It really is.
But I did notice they put in the belonging piece, and we put so much focus on DEI, we forget about accessibility and belonging.
We forget about accessibility and belonging. You know why that is? Because DEI does not include accessibility and belonging. I mean, DEIAB does, or DEIB. And I'm amazed at how much accessibility has become the new watchword. It was belonging for the longest time. You guys know this. Over and over and over again, we were told it's DEIB, DEIB. It should have been DEBI, but whatever. And everybody was like really focused on belonging. And all of a sudden, accessibility comes in, which, again, it's not like it's never been used before, but it was never the hottest extra word to put in the litany. Anyway.
Without belonging, there is no DEI, because you can have diverse, equity, inclusion.
Yeah.
But if you don't feel like you belong, like you're a part of that initiative or the community, then you're not going to thrive. And
Okay, right, okay. What does that have to do with what products Target is putting in its stores?
this is for corporations as well. So one thing we noticed was a lot of companies jumped on the bandwagon with George Floyd. Everybody said these
George Floyd? Yeah, you know, I know when George Floyd came along, I saw everybody jumping on that bandwagon.
or the community, then you're not going to thrive. And this is for corporations as well. So one thing we noticed was a lot of companies jumped on the bandwagon with George Floyd. Everybody set these amazing initiatives that they were going to do with DEI, and they were not met.
Yeah, all these corporations made gigantic promises of what they were going to invest into DEI because George Floyd died. And then they didn't fulfill them over time. They weren't legally obligated to. And a whole bunch of diversity, equity, and inclusion advocates and consultants were expecting their slice of those billion-dollar paychecks. And they didn't get them. Because, A, it wasn't financially viable to make those promises in the first place because there was no reasonable way they could make that money back if they did spend it. And B, within 2 years of George Floyd dying, the entire apparatus of diversity was put into question with the affirmative action case. So, yeah.
So Meta and a lot of companies said they did not meet their goals they set forth. So this is one of the reasons why they began to pull back on that DEI and focus on belonging. And so one thing that I would say is be honest. If you said
be honest? You're talking to this panel and you're asking them to be honest?
Unrealistic goals in the beginning, examine those goals and set smart goals now that can move the company forward.
So what kind of goals? What kind of goals are you talking about? What does that have to do with the unfulfilled promises of money from companies like Meta and elsewise? Like what?
Right, keeping in mind the belonging piece. And
the belonging piece.
What do you want to represent to the public? And so that's why I wanted to make sure I share that, because it's so important. We're talking about what can companies do now, to help with this. So
I don't know. What can companies? Oh, remember the belonging piece. Because you can't have DEI without belonging, even though belonging didn't show up as a buzzword for DEI until I want to say it was 2019, maybe, when I first started hearing it with any regularity. 2019 into 2020, something like that. But yeah, no, it really, DEI didn't exist without belonging, except it did. And DEI didn't exist without equity, except when it did, and on and on.
And I just add one thing to that I think brings the thread forward and where we need to go.
Oh, by all means.
As you're examining your names, because, we can make a lot of assumptions, one, by what we see in the news, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So we have to be really, really careful.
Such as?
But I would also encourage you to read what's being said. So there was a JP Morgan recently came out and said they're moving from DEI to DOI. And
yes, they did. It was one of the most ridiculous and asinine label changes so far in this entire deal. I mean, at least changing your DEI thing to excellence in equal opportunity. I mean, that's at least getting rid of all of the watchwords. It's still just window dressing, but it's something more complete than just going to DOI, which was what? Diversity, opportunity, and inclusion, I think it was.
And the O is about opportunity.
Yes, and DOI is better than DEI, because then you can just go, I practice DOI.
Because this has always been about opportunity. And when I first saw that, I thought, oh my gosh, that's actually wording that I like, because we seem to somehow believe that meritocracy and diversity, equity, inclusion are mutually exclusive.
They are. They really are. Here's the thing. It's the same thing with affirmative action in schools, right? Because if you have an established policy saying certain people, based on elements that say nothing about their merit or their ability, may give them an advantage in opportunities at this place, this college, this corporation, whatever, then every single person that falls within that category will forever have a question mark hanging over their head. Are they here because they earned it? Or are they here because the company took pity on them for what they are? The only way to take away that question mark is to not have a policy that discriminates in favor or against people on the basis of what they look like. DEI and meritocracy are inherently mutually exclusive one to the other. Okay? Because the first part, that first step, that diversity part, that discrimination part, oh yeah, we picked the absolute most meritorious individual from our talent pool. The talent pool that we pre-filtered through various means to make sure that it only included people from the demographics we appreciate. But really, from that filtered pool, we picked the best, save for anybody else out there that didn't pass through that first illegal filter that might have more qualifications. Merit is a secondary or perhaps tertiary consideration when it comes to DEI, which basically makes merit irrelevant. So yes, they are mutually exclusive.
And they're not.
They are.
Right? They are.
No, they are.
Not mutually exclusive
They are. You can say it over and over again, does not make it true.
concepts. But when you read further, JP Morgan continued to say it's never been about equal opportunity. And for me, what
well, that would be an honest thing from JP Morgan. It was never about equal opportunity. It was about equality of outcome.
that was as a trigger of, are we now moving away from holding ourselves accountable for dealing with some of the systemic issues that literally exist in our workplaces? So the one thing that I think is really important to add.
DEI is a systemic discrimination. You guys keep talking about how you want to have DEI woven into every aspect of a business and so on. DEI is systemic discrimination.
Is Javier and LaShawn, you're going to scare me now. I'm scared to say the name. And Mrs. Rogers.
I'm so scared. I live in fear of saying someone's name wrong and then having them very rudely tell me that I got it wrong and not just rolling with it like an adult would.
LaShonda, it's okay, LaShonda.
I don't want to get it wrong.
Inclusivity.
Are really true. Like, it could be about changing and not seeing it. However, like, let's be honest, if this also is going to represent a change in what we're doing, and are we diluting the names and are we diluting the initiatives?
Here's the only question you need to ask yourself. Is what we're doing in compliance with existing federal law? That's it. Yeah, I mean, again, you could call your entire operation DEI. And if you're not doing anything, if you have not established any quotas, if you do not have any racial or gender preferences in who you're hiring or who you're promoting, then there's literally nothing to fear. You might get some scrutiny because you use the word diversity, because it has become a red flag to intent and possible methods. But what are you talking about? Javier has already conceded that some magical 1% of what his company was doing was questionable and had to be changed. How was it changed? Why was it questionable? We don't know. He changed a name of something, which indicates more concealment than getting rid of. But what are you talking about?
It's one thing to change the name. It's another thing to dilute the work.
The work.
So I think we just need to be careful about going down that path.
Yeah, we don't want to change the name and then change what we're doing. Because if if I have a jar of poop and I put the label on it, rose water, right? I mean, if someone says that's not really rose water, and then I change the label to fluffy bunnies, I mean, we want to be careful that simply changing the name doesn't change the work, right?
Oh, I agree. I would definitely not diluting the work, but the one thing that people have to keep in mind is that the concepts. I'm probably older than most people on this call, and
so thus you should know better by now.
These concepts are not immutable, right? When I first started doing this work, it was affirmative action, then it was compliance, and when
affirmative action and DEI are at worst kissing cousins. But certainly with the Supreme Court decision, they're practically one and the same at this point.
It's just diversity. Then eventually it became inclusion. Then with George Floyd, it became diversity and equity.
No. DEI, equity was part of the litany before George Floyd. It was before George Floyd. I know that for a fact. It was D&I, then it was DEI, then it was JEDI, then it was DEIB, and then some people tried to add the A in there, either as idea or DEIA, but the A kind of fell out of practice again. But DEIB was really popular, and then everybody kind of dropped the B a little bit briefly, and now it's come back to DEIA because of Trump's executive order, and people are still trying to hold on to the B part. Trust me. The equity did not appear with George Floyd. It just didn't.
Equity was something that academic institutions did, but it was not something that you heard in the corporate setting.
Dude, what are you talking about? You didn't hear it in the court. It's only educate. I got the receipts. What can I tell you? I got a whole playlist of this stuff going back to 2016. I have the receipts, dude. The corporate world has been talking about DEI for years and years and years now. It was not exclusive to schools. Okay, Javier, maybe you should stay in your lane of excellence in equal opportunity.
Until after George Floyd, really, it became more of a common word.
Okay, well, I mean, I will grant you that. After George Floyd, it became far more common to hear about from companies, but it did not appear at the advent of George Floyd. I mean, that is provably the case.
And then most recently, finally, companies acknowledge, the need for accessibility, even though we have the American with Disabilities Act since 1991.
Yes, it almost seems like the whole idea is completely superfluous, doesn't it? Except accessibility was part of the process, or at least a suggested part of the process, as far back as 2021. You know why I know that? Well, not only because I heard it on the various, panel discussions and everything else I've been looking at for years, but also because Sister Scribe, in the company she worked for, when they started pushing their DEI program, they had a DEIA program. And she was part of the accessibility arm of that program. So it's not so recent. I mean, unless you want to talk in glacial terms, sure, everything's recent. But for some odd years, I think I'm a better DEI historian than Javier at this point.
So it's an evolution, right? So
yes,
you want to keep the essence, the core of the work, as Rocky said, but also don't be don't be tied to too hard. Don't hold too hard the concepts, because these concepts are evolving now and have evolved in the past.
No, it's not an evolution. It's just adding on new letters and things so people can sound like they're fancier or more experienced than somebody else. It's a replacement for having actual credentials, right? If I have a PhD at the end of my name, presumably it's because I went to school and I passed a whole bunch of tests and did a whole bunch of stuff to earn those letters after my name. If I say that I'm Scribelite, DEIBAJ, and then I add on, T for truth teller. I mean, I can just say those things that I have some kind of experience or expertise in those things. I don't have to prove it. I just have to say so. So when diversity, equity, and inclusion just became too sort of ho-hum, well, now we're going to add belonging. See, I know something that you guys don't. Not only do I offer DEI expertise, but I am also an expert in belonging. You're not going to find that with another DEI consultant. And other companies really need to focus on this kind of thing. And I have that training. I have that expertise. You want to hire me? I have more letters after my name. Thank you, Frosted Glass. I can't breathe. George Flurd. Yeah, George Flurd. Never forget George Flurd. George Flurd.
No, that's no big deal. No judgment for anybody who wants to make a pivot or an adjustment on what you want to call the work.
But you just said.
Unless you do the work.
Unless you do the work. I got a video on my channel called The Work. It's as true today listening to that as it was back then. The total spineless sophistry in that video, you might as well be listening to it today.
Exactly.
Oh, thanks,
Thank you
legal
guys
expert.
so much for sharing a lot of amazing insights here.
Okay, guys, that's about halfway through this hour-long video, and I've been on far longer than I imagined I would be. And I, despite my whatever you want to call it, nervous energy or whatever, despite the day, I do eventually need to go to sleep because I do have to work in the morning. Still have to get up at 4 a.m. Plus, I have to have enough energy over for tomorrow night's show. That is TED Excellence, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And what is the subject of tomorrow's TED Excellence? Well, let me tell you. It asks the question, can you be a stripper and a feminist? My reflexive answer would be yes, because there are so many different aspects and factions of feminism that I'm sure you can find one that is strip positive. But all the same, I'm still curious to hear what our speaker's answer to that question is. Keeverdam, thank you so much. I thought his name was George Kirby. George Kirby? Wait, isn't that a baseball player? Or am I thinking of somebody else? Oh, wait, Curb? Oh, wait. Am I catching a double entendre there? Keeverdam. Careful. Also, beyond that, so a couple other programming notes. Friday, barring something happening, I should be on the morning panel as usual for Midnight's Edge in the morning. And then Saturday, special, maybe one-off, don't know, might do it on a regular basis, we'll see. Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. I still have to cook it up for the sake of advertising, but Andy Masterson, the Toy Master Masterson, and I will be hanging out to talk about comic books and our favorite comic book characters. And specifically, the first idea was to talk about what's going on with the Daredevil TV series and Daredevil as a character. He knows more about the character than I do. I know about the character, but I can't say I'm a super fan of the comic book version of the character. So we're talking about that. And also, I came up with a segment idea for this stream. I'm calling it, because I'm sure nobody's ever thought of this before, I'm calling it, I've Got an Issue With ... wherein each of us talks about a comic book character that we love, and we talk about specifically a particular issue of their comic book that we think best exemplifies that character. Most of you probably already know what character and maybe even what comic book I'm going to bring up. that won't be the interesting part to me so much as finding out what Andy has to say about his favorite character or a favorite character of his and the particular issue that he thinks best exemplifies that character. So if you are a comic book nerd or want to hang out and talk about that kind of stuff or kibitz about the Daredevil TV show now or in the past, sure, hang out with us on Saturday night. And with all that, everybody, thank you for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the donation link that I forgot to even mention in this stream because I'm just such a scatterbrain. At the top of the chat box, guys, there's a link up there to donate to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. If you're able to donate there, please do so. But even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. On the way out, leave a like if you like this kind of thing. If you have something to say elsewise, you can also leave a comment, or you can always, if you want, join the Discord server. Would you like to join the Discord server? Well, let me tell you, I'm making a link to the Discord server right now, and I'm putting it in the chat right now. So click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you actually watched the stream, are not a bot, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is vowels. Just say hello, vowels, and I'll know that you watched the show. But aside from that, everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday. Hope you have a good rest of the week ahead of you. Hope to see you tomorrow night for TED Excellence. And elsewise, I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.